What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Lions video. Now, yesterday we talked about Amon-Ra St. Brown, the 112th selection in the 2021 NFL Draft, and the Lions did not have to wait long to take their next player, as at the 113th pick, the Detroit Lions traded up to select Derrick Barnes, the linebacker out of Purdue. Now, in this trade, they also received the 257th selection, which, of course, we will be talking about and analyzing tomorrow. But today we are going to be focusing on the Purdue linebacker. We're going to be focusing on Derrick Barnes, his strengths, his weaknesses, what you can expect from him year one, what his projection is, who I compare him to, a former Lion, and of course, just the overall grade of the pick. But before we get into it, if you're new to the channel and you are enjoying the content, please consider liking the videos and subscribing to the channel. It takes 2 seconds out of your day to do so. It's quick, free, and easy, and you would be helping the channel out more than you could possibly know. So if you could do that, take 2 seconds to like and subscribe. But with all that being said, and without any further ado, let's get into talking about Derrick Barnes, the linebacker from Purdue, taken with the 113th overall selection. Now, I'm going to get the comparison out of the way first because I'm going to compare stats and measurements and stuff like that to this player. To me, Derrick Barnes is Jarrad Davis. To me, they are very, very similar players, both coming out of college and for what we could expect out of both players this season. Whatever you're going to see out of Derrick Barnes is the role that they would have given Jarrad Davis, in my opinion. Derrick Barnes, coming out of Purdue, stands at 6 foot even, 238 pounds, with an 81-inch wingspan and 33-inch arms. Now, to compare that to the guy I project him to be, and as of right now, Jarrad Davis stands at 6 foot 1, 238 pounds, with a 33.5-inch arms. Now, Derrick Barnes spent 4 years with the Purdue Boilermakers. He played from his freshman to his senior year, played in 39 games for the Boilermakers, where he totaled 226 tackles, 25 tackles for loss, 10.5 sacks, an interception, 3 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery. Now, Jarrad Davis spent 4 years with the Florida Gators, where he played in 38 games, had 201 tackles, 20 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks, an interception, 9 passes defended, and 2 forced fumbles. Now, to me, their measurements and their statistics are very, very similar, as you just saw. However, their play styles are also similar as well. Derrick Barnes can play any of the 4 linebacker positions you want him to play, whether you want to play the Will linebacker, the Sam linebacker, the Mike linebacker, or the Jack linebacker position. He can play any of the 4 at a very high level, and was actually used in all 4 positions throughout his Purdue Boilermaker career. Now, I will say, I think the strength of Derrick Barnes' game is his pass rushing ability. He is a fantastic blitzer, and as I said, was played at the Jack linebacker position at certain points throughout his time at Purdue. Now, when he was put at the Jack linebacker position, he actually beat right and left tackles on one-on-ones on a consistent basis. He looked like a pretty decent pass rusher, and he looked like a guy that could potentially play a Jack linebacker position at the next level. I watched the Nebraska game specifically, where he looked really good. He consistently beat up on the Nebraska right tackle and had a couple very good reps against the Nebraska left tackle. He looked like a full-time defensive lineman. He looks like a guy that can play the Jack linebacker position at a very, very high level. And in college, he consistently beat offensive linemen to the quarterback. He was consistently better than them and beat them with pure strength, with some technique, and just overall being a better football player. And when you have a guy like Derrick Barnes who can consistently beat tackles off the ball, how do you think a running back is going to compare? How do you think when he comes screaming through an open hole and a running back tries to stand in the way and block him, that doesn't go very well for the running back usually. I mean, Derrick Barnes is a fantastic player. He's a really good blitzer and gets a lot of pressure, and, you know, obviously, as I said, 10.5 sacks throughout his Boilermaker career on the quarterback. That's where those 25 tackles for loss came from. That's where those 10.5 sacks came from. That's where those 2 forced fumbles came from. It's because he's a disruptive player that gets into the backfield over and over and over again. Now, the Boilermakers did not use Derrick Barnes a lot in coverage. It was not really something that they asked him to do. However, of course, just like any situation and just like in the NFL, there are going to be situations where the Lions are going to ask Derrick Barnes to cover somebody. And in those rare instances that I saw with the Purdue Boilermakers, I actually thought his coverage skills were okay. He didn't pop off the screen. He didn't make some crazy diving interceptions. Wasn't really necessarily getting the big flashy plays and wasn't, forcing 3-4 interceptions a season like maybe a Jabril Cox. However, I didn't see him get beat either. I didn't see him really get exposed in coverage very often. There was one angle route across the middle that he got beat on, but a lot of the time it was just like he was covering a running back out to the flats. He was with him step for step, and the wide receiver never even looked to throw it. There was one I saw in particular where he was asked to drop a little bit farther into coverage, 15-20 yards down the field, and the pass was a poor pass. But if the pass was on target, I actually think Derrick Barnes was in position to make the interception and make the big play. So he can cover. He does have that ability. He does have a smart enough brain, does have good enough instincts to know where to be in coverage schemes and knows how to be in the right spot to make a play when necessary. Now, as I said, it wasn't something that Purdue made him do a lot, and it's not something that I think the Detroit Lions should force him into more times than he needs to be. As I said, he is more of a pass rushing linebacker. He's a guy that you can put at Jack. He's a guy that you can put at the mic and just blitz over and over and over again. And that's exactly the role I wanted Jarrad Davis to have with the Detroit Lions. Matt Patricia never really grasped that concept of Jarrad Davis can't really cover that well. Jarrad Davis is not a linebacker that you want to put in coverage, and yet Patricia did it over and over and over again and then benched Jarrad Davis because Matt Patricia was playing him into his weaknesses. I think Derrick Barnes is the same player as Jarrad Davis. They're the same athlete. They're almost the same size. They had almost the same production in college. They are very similar players with very, very similar skill sets. Now, Derrick Barnes had an RAS score very similarly to his other draft class teammates. He had an RAS score of 8.42, not quite on the level of, say, a Penny Sewell or a Levi Onwuzurike. However, a good enough athlete nonetheless. He put up 29 reps on the bench. He is incredibly strong. There were tons and tons of highlights of him just absolutely throwing tackles into the backfield. There was a play in college football that came out when he was drafted of him just he was playing Jack linebacker, I believe. He came up and just shoved the left tackle into the backfield, shoved him out of the way and went and got a sack like it was nothing. Derrick Barnes is an incredibly strong player, and he couples that with some decent speed. He ran his 40 at a 4.58 time, which is, decent. He does have a 37-inch vert, which isn't great, but isn't horrible either. Derrick Barnes is a good athlete. He is incredibly powerful and is a very, very good blitzing linebacker. He's a guy that the Lions should have a role for. I don't think there's a linebacker on the roster right now that does the things that Derrick Barnes does. I don't see a linebacker on the roster right now that can blitz and get pressure on the quarterback at the linebacker position like you see Derrick Barnes do in college, which is why I really, really liked the pick. Likely, Derrick Barnes does not start on day one. I don't see him having a full-time starting roster spot with the Detroit Lions come week 1. However, I will say I think he's going to be in certain packages. I think throughout training camp, they're going to look to integrate him in certain packages. They're going to try to get him on the field more and more and more as the season goes on, because I truly think he is a talented player. I truly think he could get on the field come middle of the season and have a huge, very impactful role as a pass rusher and as a linebacker in general. As I said, incredibly strong guy, a guy that gets after the quarterback, a guy that gets pressure on the quarterback, which, as we talked about with our new defensive tackles, it creates opportunities for everybody else on the field. It makes everybody's job easier when your linebackers and when your defensive tackles can get pressure. And the Boilermakers didn't have the greatest defensive line. It's not like he was it's not like he's a linebacker playing behind a Bama defensive line. Purdue was okay. They were decent, but they didn't have a tremendous defensive line. The Lions should have a good defensive line next year. It should allow so many more holes, so many opportunities for Derrick Barnes to get to the quarterback that I wouldn't even be surprised if Derrick Barnes leads the Lions rookie class in sacks. I wouldn't be shocked if he leads the Detroit Lions class in tackles for loss because he is just simply that disruptive of a player. And with the two additions of Levi and Aleem McNeil, his production is only going to skyrocket from that point. So with that being said, I grade this pick at a B+. I think it replaces Jarrad Davis, pretty much pound for pound. It was a position of need at linebacker. It was tremendous value. I think Derrick Barnes was arguably the most underrated linebacker in this class. Derrick Barnes has very few weaknesses as a linebacker. As I said, his coverage, I wouldn't say is a strength, but I wouldn't say he got exposed often in coverage. He's slightly undersized. I think his only negatives is he's a little bit undersized and he's not outstanding in coverage, but that's really it. Those are the only negatives I really see in his game. He's aggressive, he is mean, he has a pretty good mindset, he has really good hustle, is really, really good at getting to the ball carrier. He's disruptive, he is powerful, he's a guy that could put pressure on the quarterback or could just be a see-ball, chase-ball linebacker and, just kind of wait, see where the ball goes and get there before anybody else. I think there's a multitude of different ways the Lions can use Derrick Barnes. I think he's a relatively versatile linebacker that can really do anything in your defense, and I think he's going to have a role day one. I think you're going to see him in certain packages. I think you're going to see him in certain formations, and especially against run-heavy teams, don't be surprised if you see Derrick Barnes get significant playing time and pop off the screen in those games. I don't know who he played, but I know he played the Browns. They're a run-first team. I wouldn't be surprised if Derrick Barnes gets a lot of opportunity there. I know we play a couple other teams that are really, really good rushing teams. Of course, Minnesota is really good with Dalvin Cook. Of course, Green Bay is really solid with Aaron Jones. There are some good running backs, especially in our division, that are going to have to be stopped, and I think that Derrick Barnes is the guy to do that. Now, with all that being said, that is all I have for you guys today. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you think about this pickup? What do you think about Derrick Barnes, the prospect, and what do you see in his near future as a Detroit Lions rookie? Let me know that down in the comments below. I'd be very interested to hear what you guys think about the pick. But with all that being said, and until next time, thank you all so very much for watching. And until next time, and as always, go Lions!